So yeah, I mean, my hope is, that you all discovered maybe some of the puzzles that we're going to be talking about throughout the semester in the course of your discussion. Because yeah, I think it very quickly becomes clear that it's a little bit not at all obvious how we should actually go about being responsible believers in the way that Clifford's talking about. And that in different arenas, it's going to seemingly look very different. So, let's just briefly, I'll just sort of run through things a little bit. If you were actually in class, I would actually have you all like tell me what you all discovered. That's a lot harder to do via the Zoom format. So let's just briefly talk our way through some of the questions. So what was Clifford's first argument? It was basically a kind of a consequentialist argument that there's bad consequences that follow from having false beliefs, right? And if you don't form your beliefs in good ways, you're way more likely to have a false belief. And not only that, you can spread your false beliefs to other people and get a whole bunch of people believing false things, which could produce a whole bunch of even more consequences. So, first argument for why it's important to believe true things or to go about forming beliefs in responsible ways. If you don't, you risk harm in the world. What was the second argument? Second argument is actually, I think, kind of a little bit more interesting than the first one. Not that the first one's untrue or unimportant. I just thought the second one was a little bit more intriguing. The claim in the Clifford's second argument is that we form habits when we do something a lot of times, right? And so if we get in the habit of forming bad beliefs or forming beliefs badly, say we do it in the contexts that are really unimportant, we'll use those same habits when it is important and then run the risk again of all those horrible consequences coming in. And I think that's a little bit how I think about what we're going to do in this course. I said in the last class period that we're going to use a whole bunch of different examples talking about a whole bunch of different stuff. Sometimes stuff that is indeed really important, but frequently stuff that really doesn't matter that much. Star Wars movies, right? Taylor Swift albums, whatever, right? But why, if we have good habits when it doesn't matter, we'll be able to have those good habits and carry them forward when it does matter, when it matters more. So that was Clifford's argument. But I'm hoping that where you spent most of your time was, okay, how do we actually do this then? What counts, let's do that third discussion question. What counts as evidence for belief? My hope is that you discovered that's not an easy question to answer. That was your conclusion, is that it is not at all obvious, and it seems like it's going to be really different depending on what we're talking about, right? If we're having a science discussion while you all were in your groups, I was reading a science article arguing about whether or not some weird astronomical object that was detected in the sky was aliens. All right, what's going to count as evidence in that kind of discussion is going to be really different than what's going to count as evidence if we're having an ethical discussion, if we're trying to figure out if some action is right or wrong, right? For the scientific discussion, what are we going to do? We're going to measure stuff. We're going to formulate theories, all that. If we're talking about ethics, though, like what are we going to measure when we're talking about ethics? It's at least not clear. It's not going to be the same kind of thing that we're going to be measuring in that context. If we're going to talk about Taylor Swift albums, again, what are we going to measure? How loud the album is? That's not going to be super helpful, super relevant. Right? There's going to be different kinds of things that count as evidence in different kinds of discussions, and that's one of the things we're going to work on. We're going to try to figure out sort of what evidence is relevant in different arenas, in different kinds of topics. And then it continues to get even weirder. So Clifford's claim is pretty strong. His claim is that all of you have an obligation to formulate all of your beliefs responsibly. One thing that we're going to encounter very quickly is it seems as if we have a lot of beliefs about things that it is not clear that we are competent to determine for ourselves what's true or false. So I'll just use myself as an example. I am indeed a doctor. I have a doctorate, but you should not ask me for medical advice. Would not recommend it. Gonna go poorly. Not that kind of doctor, right? All right. But I have to make medical decisions for myself, right? And formulate medical beliefs about things all the time, right? Concerning what food that I eat, when I need to go to a doctor or when I don't need to go to a doctor. Should I get this surgery? My back's hurting because I'm old. What should I do about it? I mean, all of those kinds of beliefs, it seems like you can ask me those questions and I can try to figure out the answers for myself. But there's a very real extent in which I would need a specialized skill set to answer those questions, medical knowledge, that I don't necessarily possess. How can I go about forming responsible beliefs when that's the case? And the example I gave you, my guess is there's not a lot of physicists in this room. My guess is you don't even know what the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics is, let alone what the many world interpretation of quantum mechanics is, let alone how you would go about figuring out which is superior. You would need a really specialized skill set, it seems like, to actually almost even know where to begin asking questions about those topics. What can we do as non-experts when we encounter a scenario where it seems as if expertise is necessary? Again, that's something we're going to talk about. That'll be chapter 6 in the textbook. It's actually probably the most important chapter that we'll discuss. We'll probably do that in, my guess, about 2 or 3 months. We'll finally get to that topic, but I think it really is a crucial one, maybe if you want to say especially in this moment in human history, maybe, because there's a lot of questions about who counts as an authority, who counts as an expert, who can be believed, who can be listened to with things. That's one thing we will talk about, is how can we make good judgments in that kind of scenario where we're forced to rely on other people. Goes the last couple of questions. We then had, okay, how do you actually formulate your beliefs? Yeah, my guess is you discovered, yeah, that's a good question. Where do our beliefs come from? They seem to come from all over the place. A lot of stuff we believe just because we're told it, to be blunt. I mean, and that's not even, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just dangerous, right? Because it depends if the person who told it to us knew what they were talking about to begin with. And then combine that with the fact that a lot of things we don't know how to check for ourselves, we could have run into problems as a result of this. But in general, even, I don't even think we know where our beliefs come from. Frequently, I'm sure you've all had this experience where you're talking to someone and they'll give you some kind of argument, but you can tell the argument they're giving you isn't why they believe it. It's something they came up with after the fact to justify what they already believed. Right? They started with the belief and then find reasons or evidence or give arguments that just confirm the beliefs, confirm what it is they already thought. That attitude is going to be really contrary to logic, right? Because the goal of logic is not to confirm what I already believe is true. It's to discover what should I believe is true based on the evidence. And so we're going to talk about how can we proceed if we don't know necessarily why we believe what we believe. How can we make arguments in such a way or present evidence in such a way that's intended not to just confirm my pre-existing beliefs, but actually to discover what I should believe. So again, that is a topic that will be a big one as the semester progresses. And then the last question that I asked you all to talk about, could we actually do this with all of our beliefs? Like Clifford's claim is that for every single one of our beliefs, we sort of have a duty to do this sort of rigorous process of responsibly believing things. I mean, if that's the case, are we going to be able to get out of bed in the morning, right? I mean, that's a pretty huge task. I know a few of you have taken philosophy classes before, but even those of you who haven't, you might have heard of Descartes. He's one of probably the more famous philosophers. And his whole thing, he's the guy who said, "I think, therefore I am." That's him. But the way he came to that conclusion is he tried to actually be rigorous in all of his beliefs. He said, I'm going to refuse to believe anything that I can't prove for myself to be true. And what he discovered at the end of that process is that he could prove almost nothing. Like almost nothing that he believed lived up to that high standard. Right? And the only thing that was left was, I think, therefore I am. That was the only thing he found he couldn't doubt. Right? I mean, it's an enormous standard that Clifford is setting forth for all of us. And if we had to live up to it with every single belief all of the time, we're not going to get out of bed in the morning. We're not going to be able to go to class. We're not going to be able to, go watch TV at night. I mean, it seems as if it's an overwhelming process. So how can we do all of this in the course of living a human life rather as something that just sort of stops and interrupts a human life? Again, not going to answer any of these questions today, but we're just trying to lay out some of the questions we're going to start talking about as we go forward throughout the semester. So that's pretty much all I have for today. Does anyone have anything they wanted to talk about, ask any questions or anything before we call it? All right, great. Remember, you can always send me an email or something if you run into questions after the fact. Also, I've got office hours set up Hopefully you should be able to just click that link and you should go to my office hours when they're scheduled during normal times. Happy to just chat about stuff if anyone wants to chat about anything. What we'll do for next week, my hope is you all have the textbook, or at least you're close to having the textbooks. We can probably get away with not having it on Thursday, but if you're still having trouble getting a hold of it for next Tuesday, but if you're having trouble getting a hold of it by next Thursday, that's going to get closer to problems. Maybe let me know if you are having problems. Maybe I can make a photocopy or something for you. For Tuesday, we're going to sort of begin more the normal structure of the course. People should have finished more or less adding and dropping by that point. So for Tuesday, what I'll have you do, read chapter 1 in the textbook, assuming you have it. You can probably get away with holding that off to Thursday if you don't have it on Tuesday. But read chapter 1. Then there's a video that I've made that's watch that before you come to class. It's basically the lecture part where I sort of just talk about some of the topics in chapter 1. So watch that, have that ready to go before come to class. Then there's the first of these pre-class quizzes that we talked about last time, talked about in the syllabus, that you'll do based on the video. So the video should sort of answer all the questions. It'll be a short little multiple choice, true, false kind of thing for the quiz. The quiz is on Canvas. So do that quiz. Remember, you can take that quiz as many times as you want, and Canvas tells you if you've gotten the answer right or not. So that way you can keep doing it. If you're getting questions wrong, maybe go back, watch that part of the video again, confirm you're on the right page, go back, read the textbook, confirm you're on the right page with it. Yes, if nothing else, I want you all to get full credit on these things, right? So make sure you take it as many times as you need to. Just make sure you have that done before the class session starts, because the quiz will close once the class session starts. So just make sure you leave yourself enough time that you can get it done prior to class. And then, yeah, what we'll do is we'll have another sort of group activity that we do on Tuesday. Plus, I'll do maybe a little bit longer introduction, talking through some of the material. But yeah, we'll also do another sort of group thing, and then you'll turn in the group activity that we do on Tuesday through Canvas as well. So you'll get your first grades basically of the semester on Tuesday. All right. Any last questions about anything coming up? Please, yeah, Tyler, go ahead.
Is this the right textbook? Is this the right textbook?
Reason and the Balance. That is exactly the right textbook. Yep. That is the one you need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
You said textbooks. Is there only one?
Yeah, just one. Just one, yeah. Okay. That was a misspeak on my part if I did, yeah. There is an appendix, a digital appendix to it, but that is just a link to that in the syllabus that you can use to get to it. I'll let you know when we get to that point. Awesome. Any others? Awesome. We'll have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.